Hello there, this is AD Robles, and you're listening to AD on the Fight, Laugh, Feast Network. All right, God bless you. Welcome back to the show. I am excited to be here. I hope you're excited to be here. This is going to be a very short episode. Well, I always say that, then I always go 20 minutes anyway. I don't know. But I think 20 minutes for a podcast is, I think, on the shorter side, which I'm always trying to make sure that I don't go too long. I mean, some people just do like the hour-long thing. I just can't do it. I probably could do it, but I don't know how good it would be. In any case, I hope you're having a good week. I'm having a great week. I mean, it's been a little bit of a struggle, I'll be honest. I've had a lot of activity, a lot of, stuff going on in the business, but I'm having some trouble getting deals past the goal line. So I'm having trouble closing is basically my point. But, I'm keeping at it. Keeping your prayers, by the way, if you think of it, because I'd like to close some deals this summer. In any case, I had a thought the other day, and this thought, I'm not like upset about it or anything. I'm not feeling any kind of way. It was a little bit interesting to think about. I was thinking about the Fight, Laugh, Feast Network and the kind of people, the kind of shows that are on the Fight, Laugh, Feast Network, which I'm in full support. I love the Fight, Laugh, Feast Network. I love Cross Politic. I love all these guys, that kind of thing. But I got to be honest with you, I realize that there's a very good chance that I might be the most right-wing person on the channel. I think there's a good chance of that. I might be the most extreme, the biggest extremist on the Fight, Laugh, Feast channel, which I think is saying something. The Fight, Laugh, Feast channel is on the right-hand side of, many of our kind of standard reform circles, and I'm on the right of the right. So I don't know, man. What do you think? Do you think there's anyone on the channel that's more right-wing than I am, more extremist than I am? I'm not so sure. I don't really know, but I don't really know how to feel about that either, because I'm not used to that. I'm used to there's always someone that's to my right. So there's got to be someone over there. But on the Fight, Laugh, Feast channel, it's a smaller group. I don't think there's anyone. I might be the single biggest extremist on the channel. I don't know. But anyway, that actually has a lot to do with what I wanted to talk about today, because if you're a Christian and you're a conservative, and you vote Republican, I'm not talking about liberals and pagans and, well, I mean, that's really the same thing. Let's just face it, it's the same thing. I'm not talking about, Christians that vote for Joe Biden and things like that want your money. They want to make sure abortion is safe and legal and all that kind of thing. And, they're looking forward to instead of funding, more prisons and police, they want to fund, counseling and, I don't know. Who knows? Who even knows what they want to fund these days? Green New Deals, that kind of thing. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about like actual Christians that have their head on straight. They know the score to some degree. I mean, obviously, they're not all going to know the score, but just run-of-the-mill kind of rank-and-file Christians, good people, you know what I mean? People that do the right thing, they tithe, they give to charity, and they, vote for politicians that, have extreme beliefs like, maybe we should try to end abortion. Just at least try to end abortion, make it punishable, that kind of thing. There's a lot of time and energy dedicated to that group. Because right now there is a shift happening. There's the Overton window is shifting. There are things that people openly talk about, openly promote that just a few days ago, would not have been talked about in polite company. And there's a push on, I believe, on the rightward. You know what I mean? There's a push rightward, and that's a good thing, in my opinion. But the thing is, there's a lot of energy and a lot of time in money that's dedicated to not letting that happen. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that will basically do whatever it takes to kind of act like they're going rightward, but really be firmly planted in liberalism and in immorality and and quite frankly, a pagan worldview. I mean, think of TP USA, Turning Point USA. A lot of people like Turning Point, and I remember even there was a time a few months back where James Lindsay James Lindsay thought that some of my friends were opposing him because they were jealous that he got to talk at Turning Point and they didn't. And we all laughed about it. We had a good chuckle because Turning Point is totally compromised. I mean, listen, like if the strong conservative organizations are defending, homosexuality, like what's his face, the leader of Turning Point, he has that famous tweet that everyone points to where he's like, boom, Donald Trump's effort to legalize homosexuality in Uganda have been successful, but he won't get credit. The liberals won't give him credit for that. And I'm like, we're all looking at that like, that's your boom? That's a boom to you? Like, gays in Africa. Like, that's not something to celebrate. That's something to mourn. That's one of the downsides of Donald Trump, because Donald Trump most certainly has downsides, and that's one of them. So, like that's what I mean. There are people out there that spend a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money to make sure that if you're going to be going right, that you always keep one foot firmly planted in liberalism, in progressivism, in a pagan worldview. And they'll do whatever it takes. I mean, they'll accuse people of things like, here's Jake Meador, who's, he's got this thing where I guess New Founding is having a guy on their podcast who, he's been branded with the scarlet and he's a Nazi, that kind of thing. And so the fact that they'd even talk to this Nazi and be looking forward to bringing him on the show, that means that they're probably racist too. They're probably Nazis also. And so he'll, this man who presents himself like a middle-aged lesbian. This man, guys like this, that look like this, these are the guys that are spending a lot of time to make sure that, sure, you can go a little right, but they want to make sure you're firmly planted here in liberalism, in a false view of the world. And that is something that tons of people are doing, even a lot of Christians. They want to have you firmly planted in sort of like a liberal world order. You know what I mean? So yeah, maybe you could have your wall for now, but you definitely have to make sure that, love is love. You don't have to affirm that, but you have to at least die to defend their right to free speech. And by free speech, of course, I mean promoting homosexuality. Like that. That's what it boils down to. So much for these guys. You got to promote free speech. That's to signal right, because of course we like free speech over here on the right. But what they mean by that is perversion in the schools. So what they mean by that is teaching people degeneracy, porn, things like that. Like, you can't ban porn. That would be anti-liberal. And that kind of stuff. And you see this all the time. People will accuse Gab of not being a free speech platform. Why? Because he can't put porn on there. That's basically what it boils down to. And so lots of people, they'll do that. They'll signal right, but they're firmly planted here, and they don't want you going too far this way. Here's the whole reason I'm bringing this up. You need to do the thing that they don't want you to do. What does Jake Meador, Jacqueline, what does Jacqueline over here not want you to do? Well, what he doesn't want you to do is consume content to your right. He does not want you to consume extremist content. You need to read some more extreme books. You really do. You need to read books from the far right. You need to consume content, podcasts, videos from the far, far right. The folks that guys like Jake Meador would say you should not do. Because if you do, you might catch the racism. This man right here is very concerned, and he really wants you to pay attention to him, because he'll call you a racist if you watch this podcast and if you like the podcast here from New Founding where they interview this Nazi, then you might catch the Nazi. That's the thing. Like, they desperately don't want you doing that. You have to do it. You have to read content to your right. And the reason you have to do it is because you and me, both of us, I'm not exempting myself here. We were brought up in a culture that celebrated so much upside downness, that taught us like we grew up breathing the air of error, breathing the air of a pagan worldview, a feminist worldview. You need to read harder core stuff. And I'm not saying you have to read it uncritically. I'm not saying you have to read it and just accept everything they say. Like if you were to listen to this podcast, for example, and you hear this guy and he really has these like hardcore, ridiculous beliefs, and you end up rejecting them, right? That's fine. That's fine. I would suggest hearing those kinds of people out, because here's the thing. You can't really trust your own upbringing. You can't, because there are so many assumptions that you just have, that you just assume them. You assume a feminist worldview. You, whoever is right here, I'm pointing to you. You assume a primarily feminist worldview. And you know how I know that? Because you're living in today. You're living in this time. And so you were taught, you were, in many ways, you were brainwashed into this worldview. And it's just part of how you see the world. Like, you don't know how to see it another way. And so when there are people out there that guys like this, that look like this, tell you are very dangerous, the more people are saying someone is dangerous, the more you need to read that book. You know what I'm saying? The more people that are concerned and think, oh, there's some incipient racism in here, and they go like this, you know what I mean? They probably consume quite a few seed oils. They've got long girly hair. Maybe they even cross-dress a little bit, because this guy's, I'm pretty sure right in this picture, he's got a blouse on. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. The more people are calling them dangerous, concerning, troubling, worried, racist, all this kind of stuff, the more you probably should read that book, because that is the tool that they use to keep you firmly grounded here. That's the gatekeeping tool. So that's how they keep you in a position where you're like, oh, it's free speech. What do you mean by free speech? Oh, yeah, we got to let them read the porno books in school. We have to. Otherwise, you just burn. What are you, burning books like Nazis? That kind of stuff. You need to read stuff to your right. And it doesn't work the other way. You don't have to read stuff to your left, because we grew up brainwashed by stuff from the left our whole lives. I'm 40, right? I'm 40 years old. And when I was a kid in, the 90s or whatever, this is just how we grew up thinking these, like, this is what we thought. We thought basically women and men were the same essentially, and then women can do anything men can do. And of course we knew that, men could get more muscle mass and stuff like that, but still, there were really no differences, a few kind of minor differences, but really there weren't any differences. We grew up in a worldview where most of our teachers were women. You know what I mean? Most of the people that we learned from in Sunday school, a lot of us, were women. You know what I mean? And maybe you're in a different situation, so if you were lucky, you're lucky. But you need to assume that what you understand as standard and normal is probably tainted. It's probably tainted, and you probably don't have your wits about you. And so you need to read and consume content, videos, podcasts, things that if someone that you listen to doesn't say something that you're thinking, man, that's pretty wild. That's kind of out there. That seems, that might be a little racist. If you never experience that in the stuff that you listen to, your podcasts, your videos, your books, you are not doing yourself any favors. You really aren't. You're basically comforting yourself in a false worldview is what you're doing. And so you need to be challenged. And I'm telling you, this needs to be specifically on the right, because you just don't know the things that you're missing out here. You really don't. And guys like this will try to keep you captive by saying, if you even invite someone on the podcast that I deem a racist, then maybe you're one of them. And that has worked for a very, very long time. And so they're doing it. They're doing it because it's worked for a very long time. It's working a lot less today than it used to work. And so we can only be grateful for that, because back in the day, I remember there's a whole thing about Emmett Till right now, and I guess some people are saying they didn't know who Emmett Till was. And I guess Emmett Till was the patron saint of is sort of like the George Floyd of the civil rights era. And I did know who Emmett Till was. I remember learning about Emmett Till because I grew up in New England, so maybe that's why. But I remember learning about Emmett Till. I'm still the way I am, by the way, guys. So it really has nothing to do with with what kind of beliefs you have. So I knew who Emmett Till was, but some people didn't know who Emmett Till was, and so like they're all. They're basically using that to see you don't know anything about the racism of the past, and maybe you are racist if you don't know who Emmett Till was. You're just totally white privilege. It's white privilege. That's that kind of thing. It's being used as a weapon right now, and people in a few years ago would have been horrified to be like, oh man, I'm so ignorant. I don't know who Emmett Till was. Now people are laughing at this. Like, okay, I don't know who Emmett Till is. What's the big deal? Who cares? You know what I mean? They're making jokes about it. And they should. And they should. Don't let guys like this that are on your screen keep you captive by being concerned. Because that's they do. Concerned, troubled, worried, all that kind of stuff. They try to keep you firmly planted in liberalism and not exploring. There's a lot of truth to your right. Let me put it that way. There's a lot of truth to your right. There's a lot of truth to your right. Doesn't mean everything over there is true, but there's a lot of truth to your right. And I can pretty much guarantee, I'm talking about you. I don't even know who you are, but you who's listening to this. And if you're listening to it, I'm pointing at the camera. I'm saying you. Because you grew up in the place you grew up here in the United States, some of you aren't from the United States. Because you're about the same age as me, a lot of you. I know the milieu that you grew up in, and you grew up in a time of peak brainwashing, for liberalism. And so there's a lot of truth to your right. You don't know as much truth as you think you know. There's a lot of truth to your right. And so I would suggest going out there and finding some content that guys like this, guys like Jacqueline Meador, would not want you to watch, would be fearful for you to watch. Look at the guys that are accused of racism. You should watch their content. You should read their content. The guys that are accused of being an anti-Semite, read their content. Hey, maybe they really are an anti-Semite. Okay, maybe. But you should listen to their content. And you should figure out who over there is actually just getting the accusations and who's actually someone that's no bueno you don't need to listen to. Because there are guys on the right that are no bueno, you don't need to listen to them. But there are a lot more guys on the right than you think that have a lot of extremely helpful things to say. And things that guys like Jake Meador definitely don't want you to know. Why do guys like Jake Meador want to keep you firmly entrenched in liberalism? Well, I've got my opinions and theories. But I'm not going to reveal those right now because they're just wild speculation. That being said, there's a lot of truth to your right. And the more you expose yourself to it, the more you'll be able to discern the difference between the extreme stuff on the right that, no good, and the extreme stuff on the right that actually isn't extreme at all, that actually has been common knowledge for centuries, is taught in the scripture, is supported by the scripture, and that we need to return to. We need to return to it. We need to shake off the shackles of slavery to the god of liberalism. Get rid of it. Destroy it. Don't let little weasels like this get the better of you. Anyway, that's my point today. You need to read. So you need to go harder. You need to read more extreme stuff, consume more extreme content. You need to do it on the right, because there's a lot of good stuff on the right. That the guys like Jacqueline over here, Jacqueline Meador, have told you that if you even consider consuming it, you're going to be a really naughty boy. Anyway, I think I've made my point. I hope you found this podcast helpful. God bless. Don't forget to tune in next week on Thursday for the AD on Fight, Laugh, Feast Yeah, something like that. AD on the Fight, Laugh, Feast Network.
Puro fuego es mi amor por ti.